Welcome to the microphone check with JB and Q, where no topic is off limits. So here's what's on our minds. Should men be more open about their emotions? Now, for me, let's start off with me. For me, I used to have problems about sharing my emotions. I think with the first thing about it was that when you're kind of growing up as a male, as a boy, you're often told to don't cry. Are you crying like a girl? And so they kind of made emotions be associated with females, being feminine. And so we kind of step back about saying, let me share my emotions. And so as I was going through relationships and stuff, I was like, I like girls, but I never really broke it down like how I felt. But I do see now that as time has transpired and everything, that I believe women, like my wife, she deserves to know my emotions. She deserves to know how I feel, whether it's love, whether it's frustration, whether it's indifference. I believe that now that she deserves to know it like I deserve to know hers. And so my immediate answer before we go in details is that, yes, I believe men should be more open about their emotions. What you think?
Yeah, so much like yourself, I grew up and I was told, hey, you're not supposed to really show emotions. And not necessarily in those exact words, right? But it was, big boys don't cry. Or, I've even been told that, hey, men don't cry unless there's a funeral. And, I often struggle with that because, I look at that and I say, hey, why can't I show emotions, right? And as I began to get older, I realized that I hadn't even told my father that I loved him because that's not what we do. That's not what we were taught. And then the more I began to think about that thing, the more I began to realize that I was robbing myself from emotional connections. And then I began to get into studying psychology and all these other things. And that's when it really began to make sense to me that, hey, when we tell our boys, our young men, that they're not supposed to have emotions, when we tell them that, hey, you need to be hard, what we are really doing is setting them up for a emotionless time in their lives. This is why I believe we have so many marriages that are failed, because men go into marriages not knowing how to share their emotion, not knowing how to be completely vulnerable with their wives, because this is something that we haven't necessarily been taught or allowed to do, especially in the Black community, right?
Right.
This is why you have so many sons, and I can certainly say that I was one that grew up not thinking that I had a emotional connection with my father, because he too was taught the same thing. So it's like it's a perpetuation of boys being denied emotional connections, and it ultimately, well, I'm not gonna say ultimately because it doesn't happen often or all the time, but it does end sometimes in men divorcing, not having a relationship with their children, not knowing how to even parent their daughters. So I think this is certainly something that we should definitely be discussing on today.
So when I think about the emotions, like, okay, one, emotions are the sharing of emotions is it makes you vulnerable. So that vulnerable is the word. Like if I share this emotion, especially maybe not a negative or positive emotion, but just the emotion in general, it makes me vulnerable because you now know if you now know. Sad to say, but it's viewed as a weakness at times.
As a weakness, yeah. I was gonna say that.
If I share my emotions, then maybe I'm sharing that I'm weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think it hit me the most was when even though I came to the realization of sharing emotions, I still carried on what I was taught when raising my own son. Like, I have a son. And I continue on doing the thing, and somebody heard me, a female heard me telling him like, stop crying. And she told me this was important. She was like, you should allow him to express himself, because if you don't, the woman that he decides to be with will have to try to fix your problems that you created, fix the problems you created.
100%.
And I'm like, oh,
hey. It's crazy that you said that, because I've heard so many women saying that, hey, I feel like I have to completely re-raise my husband. And that's part of the reason. It's because they have been emotionally stunned when they were younger. And so now they go into these marriages and they don't know how to fully be completely vulnerable with their wives.
Man.
I mean, I even speak personally about my life, because, like I said, for me, it was a process. It's not, not like I just got married all of a sudden and I just had this great epiphany and I said, hey, Q, you need to be open with Tia. It didn't happen that way. We're talking about long nights of sitting up and talking, and she was like, why won't you just open up to me? Why won't you just tell me what's on your mind? Why don't you just tell me what's on your heart? And I'm like, well, because that's not what I do. My wife and I were married for nearly 10 years before I was even able to cry in front of her.
Wow.
That's how deep it was.
I mean, you didn't watch Lion King in front of her, man.
But yeah, almost 10 years before I was able to be that open in front of her. And this is the depth of what this does to men in particular, when we're told that, hey, you're not supposed to show emotions.
Nah. When I was growing up, I used to wrestle in school, since elementary school all the way to high school. I used to wrestle. And one time I was wrestling. I'm gonna put my business out here. So one time I was wrestling this guy at practice. He was my sparring partner. He was wrestling. We were supposed to come together. The coach said, stop, come together, group up. And he still was playing around. He was playing around. And he tackled me. And when I fell to brace myself, I felt awkward, and I didn't know at the time, but I fractured my bone. And man, that thing was hurting like all get out.
But you didn't cry.
I didn't cry, but I was in so much pain. The coach sat me out for the remainder of the practice. My dad came and picked me up. I was sitting there holding in, like, because we got in the car, and my dad, already aware of this, he was like, all right, you can cry now. And I broke down because I was holding all that pain in. This really hurt, man. I hold that pain in. He was like, now you can cry. And I broke down. And because I didn't want to cry in front of the guys, and we had cheerleaders practicing at the same time. So I'm like, I'm not trying to cry from the cheerleaders. It was crazy, but I broke down, and my dad understood that. But what that showed me, though, from a dad's standpoint, is that even outside of a relationship with the female, or somebody that you're trying to get with, somebody that you're married with, even outside of that, when I had to wait till I got to a level of pain that I even had to cry in front of my dad to show that vulnerability, show that emotion, even though he was already there. But he took the time at that moment to allow me to be what I felt at the time, weak.
Yeah.
And so when we talking to each other, like, are we allowing each other as friends, brothers, all this stuff to allow ourselves to be vulnerable with each other?
Each other, yes. One thing that I got from what you were just saying, though, your dad, in a sense, became your safe place.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, in a sense, he became your safe place, because as soon as you got in the car with your dad and your dad said, hey, son, you can cry, it's okay, floodgates came. So it's almost as if your dad was like your safe place. Hey, I got a question that I want to flip on you before I ask the question that you just posed, though. when was it that you were able to even tell another male in a friendly way, but yet a impactful, emotional way that you loved them?
Well, outside of family.
Yeah, outside of family.
Oh, okay, okay. Outside of family, I would probably say outside of family, right? Because there's not a lot of guys I say it to still today. But I would say that outside of family, it was a church I went to called Victory Temple Missionary Baptist Church,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a men's group there, this men's ministry, and they began to do the "I love you" with each other as brothers.
Yeah.
They used to have the symbol they used to use when I was there was like the locking of hands, like iron sharpened iron. We're in this together. It takes more to pull us apart when we lock in.
Yeah.
And they used to say, you know, that's when we used to say, "Yo, I love you, man. I love you, bro." Now, when I first started, though, it was not straight like, "I love you, man." It was much love,
Yeah.
I had to make it sound tough.
You know what this means. Right here. You right here.
Right. I got you, man.
I got
You the whole.
Yeah. Got you right here.
So that's what it was initially. But now I'm to those that I feel like I'm in that place to say I love you, like I love you, like a brother, like I love you, like
Yeah.
I'm now in a place to where I can say I love you without having it to sound tough or anything like that.
Yeah. I want to say I think it was maybe 2002. There was these three gentlemen that I knew. And, they were all going their separate ways, one to DC, a couple of them getting out or whatever. And I remember that these brothers was some brothers that led me to Christ. And they became, for all intent and purposes, my Hebrew boys. And I sent them an email to let them know how I connect with them. And I used the example of, hey, you guys are my Hebrew boys. And, we're not going to go into great details about what that means because those brothers don't know what I mean when I say that they're my Hebrew brothers. But this was me trying to tell those brothers without telling them, hey, I love you. hey, I love you boys, So I remember that. And I was like, if I can go back in and say to those boys, JB being one of those, right? But hey, I love you. I wonder how that would have changed the tide of our friendship even that early on. I mean, certainly we're still friends after all of this time, right? In fact, we're beyond friends, in my opinion. I think we're more like brothers, right? Yeah. but I often wonder if one of us had was bold enough to say at that particular point in our lives, because we all knew how we felt towards one another. I mean, we hung out together in one another's weddings and all that. But why was it so hard for us to say, hey, bro, I love you, man?
Well, I would say culture at the time. So culture plays a big part in this, right? Not trying to offend anybody, but at a time, it was a man saying that to another man was always coined as being homosexual or the term gay, right? So at this time, you won't say that. One, because other people may hear it. Two, because we reserve those words for the women in our lives, whether it's our mom, daughter, sister, wife, girlfriend. Those words were always meant to be some form of close intimacy relationship with a woman, the women in our lives. Never really kind of extend to outside of that. Like, do we say, I'll tell our fathers? Do we tell our brothers? Do we tell our male friends? We kind of didn't say that. We didn't hear about it. We didn't say it. So culture had a big play into that. Two, the second aspect of it is that when we express the emotions, because this is about emotions, when we express our emotions, we had to battle between being a man that shared his emotion, especially to the opposite sex, but also being considered too expressive by the opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh man, I don't want no man that cries. I don't want no man, And so now you're like, okay, well, I can't. If I go around and tell everybody, I love you, man, I love you, woman, I love you this, I love you that, then women may think I'm weak too.
Yeah.
So I had to build a persona of strength by caging my emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But until we find a place to where, like you said, the safe place.
A safe place.
A safe place means people that I care about and not caring about the other people that are observing it. Then I can uncage my emotions and just be authentically who I am. So if I see you in the street, regardless of who's around me, I myself is my safe place. I can say when we depart, hey, I love you, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Love you, man. Give our dad hug.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to do the male hug to be tough. We could go bring it in, bro. Because I'm safe in me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100%. I don't care how anybody else interpret it. This connection is what we have as being beyond friends, being brothers, being connected beyond blood. So I can express it regardless of how I feel or how others feel about it.
Yeah. So with me, I think that when you're able to make those emotional connections, it actually opens up a lot of things. But and I know we're not going to talk about this in this segment, but it definitely kind of segue into a different other topic, like even with communication, because I think that one thing that we deprive one another of is communication. But I think that once we open up those lines of emotions, right? Once I can be completely vulnerable with Jeremiah, I can say, hey, man, this is what I'm going through. And I can trust that you're going to, one, hold me, and not hold me in the sense that, hey, I need for you to caress me or nothing like that. But what I mean is, it's be like a pillar in my life to say, hey, you know what, bro? I got you. I can be that shoulder that you can cry on. I can be that ear that you can just lay whatever it is that you're going through on me. I can be your safe space. And I can trust that when I tell you something, that it's between you and I. And not only is it between you and I, but I can also trust that, hey, I have a person that can support me through whatever it is that I'm going through, right? So I think that's one reason why it is important for we as men to be able to establish those type of emotional connections with other guys. Because let's just face it, there's some things that we're not going to be able to tell our wives. Not that we shouldn't tell our wives everything. So I'm going to put that out there. But there are certain things that we need other brothers to support us in.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, I do believe it. I think what we have to come into with ourselves is defining the criteria of this safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What is a safe place? One, obviously, like you said, the level of trust needs to be there. There's understanding and trust between the individuals. So as long as I could trust you, my vulnerability, I trust you with my vulnerability, I trust you with my emotions, I trust you with my openness at the time. Mm-hmm. That has to be a component of a safe place.
Yes.
The other component of a safe place is respect.
Mm-hmm.
I got to respect you. You have to respect me. In this space, we are equals. Mm-hmm. There's a level of respect given and taken, but we respect each other in it. And people can apply this to any form of relationship that requires emotions. Do I trust the person? Do I respect the person? And can I be honest?
Yes.
So honest is
that last part.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to feel ashamed to express myself. Mm-hmm. If I feel ashamed to express myself, then you're not a safe place. Mm-hmm. And so in that, I'm being I could be open here. Whether that openness is depression and me wanting to commit suicide, the openness is, hey, bro, what you said hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
That hit me deep, or anything like that. I could be open about it, and then the response will be, man, you just a punk. Right? It's like, okay, why are you depressed, or why would I say cut you deep like that? And this can go with any relationship, like whether it's a marital, boyfriend, girlfriend, friendships, family. It can go with any relationship. Respect, openness, be open and honest, and trust.
Okay. So, question for you then. When it comes to you rearing your son, how has their relationship been with the emotional connection, or trying to teach him that he can be vulnerable with not just you, but with his mom and with his sister?
No, it's a combination. It's a combination. We still working on it. It's a combination of stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, and this is just me, I give him a space to express himself, but I also have to teach him that life does go on.
Yes.
So for me, if something bothers him, especially when he was younger and cried a lot, I said, you have this, let's use 2 minutes. You have this 2 minutes to cry. Let it all out. Do what you want. But after this 2 minutes, now what? What do you do from here? I said, no, you can't have that. You cried your 2 minutes because you felt that was real to you, because you couldn't have this snack or whatever it may be. You felt that was real. Now, 2 minutes later, my answer is still no. Now what you're going to do? You can play, you can do this, that, and the other, right? This is how life be. You can't get stuck in your emotions. You have to work your way through your emotions.
Through your emotion. That's good right there.
That's how I do this with my son.
Yeah. I would say that I think with my older two children, I mean, obviously, my middle is a girl, so it was a little bit easier to do the whole emotional thing with her. But with my oldest son, I couldn't believe how easy it was to do the emotional thing with him. And I guess because his mom has always been like that very open person who wanted to have the emotional connections. So from the very start, we're going to the whole thing about crying. I used to tell him, you know what, you're allowed to have those emotions, have them. And I can recall the first time that we were home and he was a toddler, and he was, crying or whatever. And I had my parents like, why are you letting that boy cry? He's not supposed to be crying. He needs to toughen up. I was like, no. He doesn't need to be tough. Like, what does that even mean? Like, can you describe to me what it means? What does that look like to say that he needs to be tough? One, and two, why can't he have his emotions? Like, why would I rob him from the emotions that he has? Because his emotions is different from your emotion, which are different from my emotion. Does that mean that we should stop him from having those type of emotions?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing though, that youngest son of mine, though, as much as I try to show up with him, and as much as I try to encourage him to be open about his emotions, he refuses to. Now he's completely vulnerable with his mom. Completely vulnerable with his mom. But for whatever reason, and maybe it's a societal thing, right? Maybe because he's already, been corrupt by school. Because certainly in this house, we preach, openness, and let's all try to be, love on one another, and be open about our feelings. We do that here in this house. But for whatever reason, he is the one that we're not. Like I said, he's completely vulnerable with his mom in the privacy of, them two, just them two in the room alone. But if it's anyone in the room besides him and his mom, no. I don't care how hurt he is not gonna cry. Like you can tell he's like, got all the air in his chest. You know he wants to wake up. And I'm like, son, it's okay, let it out.
Nah, nah.
Not today. He's still a work in progress. He's definitely still a work in progress. But like I said, with my oldest son, it was just so much easier to get him to just open up. And now I can't get him to not open up. He tells me everything.
Well, one thing I do now is the physical expression, the physical and verbal expression of love, right? So as my son is growing up, I tell him I love him just like I tell my daughter, and I hug him just like I hug my daughter. So I think that kind of for him, I hope that he continues on being open about it. I try not to, the whole, I try not to belittle him when some of the stuff. So now sometimes in my mind I'd be like, it's not that serious, but it's serious to him. So I allow him to be, like I said, to be in that space of emotion, and then figure his way to move beyond that, or use it, or whatever he needs to do. But I know, we start off, should men be more open about their emotions? And I believe even in this discussion, we said that to be true. Like I don't think there's a dispute in it between us, and I hope even to the listeners that emotions, men should be able to do that. Men should do it, and the receivers of it shall allow it to happen.
Should allow it to happen, yes.
Partnership. Allow me to express, and I should express. So I certainly hope as we move forward that we're building up in the next generations, like we talked about, like you brought up a good point about our children, that even if we were messed up, that we make it easier for our children
in their spouses,
and they get to that space, their children get to it, and then maybe next generation, 2 generations down, men would be more open to share their emotions and share with other people. So, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So we challenge you to be vulnerable with the people who are important to you in your lives. Be able to share that, be able to speak how you feel, the hurt, the pain, the love, the joy, whatever emotions that you're feeling, be able to express it. So if you can, be intentional with that expression with at least one person. They like say, I'm going to call my dad and I'm going to express myself. I'm going to call my boy, my best friend, and I'm going to express myself to that individual. Just be intentional with one person. You may even find it comforting, and you may even say, you know what, I'm gonna do it to more people because this is where I'm at. Any last things from you before we head out?
No, I think you hit everything on the head. Like we have to be more intentional about the relationships and the people that we have in our life, letting them know how we feel and experience those connections with them while we still have the time to do so.
Nice. While we still have the time. So listeners, thanks for listening to What's on Our Mind. Come join us next week as we discuss, does my vote really matter? I think Q and I have a great discussion on that next. Does my vote really matter? You see him smiling already because that's his topic right there.
Yes, sir.
So this is Microphone Check with JB and Q. Until next time, peace, power, prosperity, and patience.